Thank you all for coming. My name is Chris Hurd. I'm a member of the Stop the F-35 Coalition. We are gathering tonight in response to the delay by the Burlington City Council to postpone the vote to oppose the basing of F-35 warplanes at the Burlington International Airport at tonight's meeting. Late last week, the council postponed tonight's vote because it was discovered the proper liability insurance was not in place. Many found the timing of this delay odd, as we, the opponents, had asked about such matters over a year ago via our attorney, Jim Dumont, and more recently in the past 6 weeks by several city councilors being told that all was in place. Now we know different. We can only speculate about what transpired. We are here tonight to move forward, and let me begin by saying, of course, we want the city of Burlington to have insurance to protect city integrity and to protect public servants. That's a good thing, and that makes prudent sense. But there is a parallel track here. We believe the City Council ought to act to protect all citizens based upon decisions the Council makes that adversely imparts risks, causes liabilities, property value losses, and harm to people in likely crash zones based upon heightened risk probabilities of a new aircraft. The residents of South Burlington, Winooski, Williston, and Burlington, being so adversely impacted, can't go out and purchase insurance to cover themselves from the basing of F-35 warplanes here in Vermont. Even more important, the city must do the right thing, the prudent thing, to protect the health and safety of all Vermonters impacted by their decisions. The facts about the harm to health and safety were provided by the Air Force. No one is more authoritative than the Air Force itself. Nothing in the Air Force report says the F-35 will improve the hearing, cardiovascular, or learning ability of children. Nothing says it is less likely to crash. Nothing says it will improve property values. Nothing says it will create lots more high-paying jobs or be good for our economy. Just the opposite. The Air Force told the city in its final report that this new plane is much louder than the F-16, and it is loud enough to put 770 Vermonters in an extreme noise zone above 70 decibels, where the Air Force says hearing loss and cardiovascular disease are credible, and cognitive impairment of children is credible. And the Air Force says that houses in high noise zones lose property values and property taxes, which is bad for both the homeowner and municipal treasuries. And that was confirmed by a respected Vermont real estate appraiser. And the Air Force Inspector General is telling us that the F-35 program is out of control in terms of quality assurances, and that the F-35 program does not even have the basic quality systems to ensure that critical components are safety grade. And the Air Force says very few jobs will be created, and most of those are part-time, and the effect of the economy is negligible either way. And the Air Force says that the current program will continue if Burlington is not selected for the F-35 basing. The city is doing the right thing, the prudent thing, to protect itself with insurance. Insurance provides compensation for damages. More important is for the city is to prevent the damages to thousands of families. No one can be adequately compensated for hearing loss, heart disease, or the cognitive impairment of their children. The city must take action to protect these people. So insurance is in its rightful role as a backup for careful, prudent action by the city to protect the people. The city can tell the Air Force, we believe, what you are telling us. This new plane is not a good idea for an airport surrounded by 4 or 5 cities with thousands of families in noise and crash zones. The City Council can do the right thing, the prudent thing, to protect both itself and the people by voting to tell its tenant that it cannot base F-35 warplanes at its airport. Paul Fleckenstein will be the first to speak.
Okay, thank you. It's great to see so many people here, especially in the most important weeks of this campaign, when this issue is coming to the Burlington City Council. The longer this campaign goes, the bigger it gets, and I think that bodes very well for our chances. Last week, the Air Force very predictably issued a preliminary decision to base the F-35 in Burlington. The boosters of the F-35 have shown that they are unconcerned with the environmental impacts and that they are unconcerned with what the F-35 means for the future of our society and for the planet. And I think we can now see the logic of this. The fix was in. It was apparently well known to the so-called business and political leaders who cheerlead the basing that Senator Leahy alone ultimately decides. And I hope you've all seen the press reports that more or less document Leahy's personal intervention to ensure the basing in Burlington. There's no need to take the environmental impact seriously or even meet with residents. No matter how damning the environmental impact, it never really mattered. But really importantly, it matters now because the Burlington City Council will have a huge opportunity later this month. It can reject the basing, as Chris and many other people have laid out. And there's a question now of which side Burlington is going to stand on.
That's right.
On the side of boondoggle warplanes or on the side of human rights? On the side of ripping off taxpayers or on the side of funding healthcare and education?
That's right.
These warplanes should not be anywhere near people,
That's right.
let alone in Vermont's most populated community. They are obsolete weapons that should not exist at all.
That's right.
Like the F-16s that symbolically flew over New York City on 9/11, the F-35's real mission is to bomb 5,000 miles away in the Middle East and Asia, thus increasing the anger at U.S. war policies and actually the risk of terrorist attacks. So I think it's up to us. It's only public pressure that's going to help the City Council do the right thing. So I'm glad everyone's here tonight, and I hope that you come back when this is on the agenda of the City Council, and you bring your neighbors, you bring your friends, you bring your family, you bring everyone you can think of. So we pack Contois, and we help Burlington do the right thing. Thank you.
Tonight that would like to give you a little bit of how we got to where we are tonight, and I'd like to begin by introducing you to Rachel Siegel.
For coming out and for the work you've done up to now and the work that I know you'll continue to do until this vote happens and beyond it. Really hope that all of you, if you have not already, will call city councilors. It's really important that they get many, many phone calls. We don't want any city councilor to show up at the meeting and be able to say, well, I didn't hear from anyone.
That's right.
So even the people who you think are a no-go, call them, please. Call all of them. And if they're not willing to vote for the first resolution, the selling point to me on the second resolution for people who aren't just opposed to them in general, like most of us are, is that we will no longer be the guinea pigs.
Yeah.
When the F-16s came, they had been flown for, I don't know the number, tens of thousands of hours. Hundreds of thousands of hours. We are not the place for a brand new plane when everybody knows, whatever the numbers are, that the crash rate is higher at the beginning. We don't know necessarily how much higher. It's guesswork because they're brand new. Not only are the crash rates higher in the beginning, but these planes are different than the other planes. They are different than the F-16s in that they're made of, largely, they're almost 50% the shell of them made of a composite plastic. So when it crashes, that burns, unlike metal. And as it burns, and in the last crash that happened, it burned for 48 hours using a tremendous amount of resources trying to extinguish the flames. Those flames set off toxic carcinogenic fumes. And we have no evacuation plan. So I don't want one of those crashing here ever. I don't want one crashing here during the first round of basing. And my honest hope is that we can put the pressure on, keep ramping up this momentum, get the rest of the councilors to vote on the second resolution, the compromise resolution. And in my heart, what I hope then is that by the time there's a second round of basing, either the whole program's been scrapped or the truth is out about what the EIS says and that we're not the place for it ever. Not to me directly, but I hear that the mayor has said he would veto that first resolution if it passed, but that he will not veto the second one. So that to me is actually a clue. thanks a lot for being here. Let's wait till we're done and see if there's time. Is that okay?
So what do you think? Can we stop this plane? Yeah! Absolutely! What do we want? No F-35s! Come on, a little louder now, come on! No F-35s! Come on, oh, you sound great tonight, folks. This is amazing. The energy that we have in this room is incredible, and this is really reflective, I think, of the tremendous energy that we've built as a coalition around stopping this plane from coming to our state. So thank you so much for coming out today. This is amazing. This is absolutely incredible, and nothing less than this kind of turnout is going to be sufficient to stop the plane in the end. We're going to need to keep this energy, keep up that communication and that contact. I know everybody, including myself, was incredibly excited to deal with this issue, to give a yes or no vote, and hopefully, in my mind, give a no vote on the basing the F-35 tonight. Unfortunately, we asked the city attorney to do a review of the liabilities associated with basing at the F-35 at the airport. You know, could the city be sued for damages incurred by that? In her legal review, what she uncovered was a lack of insurance, a lack of public officials' liability insurance. So basically saying that if a public official made a decision with regards to anything really around the airport, that they could potentially be held liable for this. Now that's, that's unfortunate, and that's something that we're working to take care of. I know that the airport, as well as other folks, are in the process of trying to secure that insurance, and we'll see that through hopefully this week. At that point, like Rachel said, we'll be able to then put a date on the map as to when we'll be able to have a special meeting or otherwise in which we'll be able to deal with this issue. But I think, like Chris was saying earlier in this meeting, it's really interesting because if we as public officials don't want to be liable for these decisions, how then can we say that our community, that our city should be liable for these decisions? How can we say the loss of home values, that bringing a plane that's 4 times louder, that leading to children's cognitive developmental disability or other things that are associated with the plane will be suddenly, okay for us to be liable for. I cannot personally, as a city councilor, in good conscience, do that. And I think that we as a city really have to send a clear message to the Air Force saying, no, we don't want to be personally liable, we don't want to be liable as a community, we don't want to be liable as a state. So hopefully with this resolution and with all of your support, we'll be able to get there. Now, in terms of tonight, we're having the normal public comment period. If you do choose to comment on this issue, please keep your comments positive. We're so close to getting the support that we need. We need people to be positive, really thanking councilors for their votes if in fact they are choosing to oppose. Please do not attack people. That's not what we're about here. We're about building consensus around stopping this plane. So if we can please do that, keep your comments short if you can, because and try and say different things. It's okay to get up there and say, hey, I agree, if someone has already said what you're going to say. So those are just some tips for the public comment. Of course, you can obviously say whatever the heck you want. It's a free country. So do what you need to do with that. But those are just some tips from my perspective. So thank you so much for coming out tonight. We really appreciate the turnout. We'll be in touch with you about when that final meeting is scheduled, and make sure that you have a chance to turn out in these beautiful numbers yet again. So thank you so much.
Anybody, any resident, anywhere can call any city councilor. You're allowed, whether you live in Burlington, whether you're in their ward or not. They likely will weigh more heavily the opinions of people within their own ward and or within Burlington. But please continue to encourage folks even outside Burlington to make those calls.
Okay, so the meeting's just about to start, so we're going to need to go into the room in just a minute. But before we do that, I want to thank you all for coming out on a rainy night. Things changed with what was going to happen tonight, so to have this turnout is incredible. And I encourage you to look around this room and see who's here. See the breadth and the depth of who is in here in our community. This is a great coalition that we have, and we really need you guys and women, everybody, to get everybody you can to come in for this next meeting that we have coming up. And if you want to sign up to talk tonight, please know that you have to sign in when we go inside the council room.